If there's one thing we have witnessed throughout all of our time playing video games, it's that we can all agree, frequently critics get it wrong. Now last month I talked to you about this and I gave you a list of 10 games that were kind of middle of the road that I thought critics did not get the scores right on, that they just kind of overlooked the quality of the title. We're going to be doing that again today, but I wanted to point out something that a lot of you said last month, and it's something I agree with. I was setting the bar a little too high. I was saying anything up to an 80 was considered kind of middle of the road. And I was trying to equate that to like a school grading scale by saying that was like a C. A C is an average, but you guys rightfully pointed out that that doesn't necessarily mean the same thing with video games. So we're going to be going pretty much 70 and below on this one. So anything that is kind of past that middle of the road state of a 70 and going below that. So I got 10 more games for you, and we're going to start off on the Game Boy Advance with Capcom Classics Mini Mix.
I love the Game Boy Advance, and one of my favorite games on the console is Capcom Classic Mini Mix, which is a compilation title. You guys, if you've been on the channel for a while, you know I'm a sucker for compilations. And this one's one of the best, collecting 3 fantastic NES games. You get the brilliant Bionic Commando, the superlative Strider, but the real reason you're here, and the one that you want to pick this game up for, is Mighty Final Fight, which is a retelling of the Final Fight story on an NES cartridge. You get adorable chibi versions of Cody, of Guy, of Hagar. You fight ridiculous enemies. It's a fantastic game. It's a wonderful beat 'em up. And the best part is, this cartridge is like 15 bucks. And Mighty Final Fight on the NES is like a $500 cartridge right now. So you can get a wonderful game, a wonderful collection of 3 games for under like 20 bucks. It's brilliant. It's a wonderful collection, and it's a fantastic thing that I look at and I go, a 66? That's just not right. Like, that doesn't work for me. I can't see how 3 great games from the NES put together portably on the GBA come out to a 66. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Off now to the N64 with one of my favorite games on the console, and something I think kind of perfected snowboarding games for things that aren't titled SSX. This is 1080 Snowboarding.
When I think of the Nintendo 64, one of the first things I think about are racing games, and specifically fun racing games that were imaginative and a little bit different than what we were getting on other consoles. Now on the PlayStation 1 we had the Cool Borders series, which I loved, but I think the 1080 series really eclipsed Cool Borders in every conceivable way. And I think without 1080, we don't get things like SSX or Amped a little bit down the road. Everything in this game to me just, well, okay, that's a lie, not everything. A lot of things in this game work really well. I think the racing is extremely fun, and that's to be expected on a console that is known for its racing titles. The multiplayer is really good. The single player is also really fun. The only spot that I think the game kind of falls down a little bit is on the tricks, and that could just be because I'm bad at the game. But for me, I just think it's a fun snowboarding title, and I'm kind of shocked that it only comes in at a 70 overall when I average out the rating scores. It's a better game than that to me, and I think for a lot of people it's a better game than that, because I've never really heard anyone say anything negative about this title. I just think it's fun.
Here's one I wish I had the case for. I've got disc only, but this is one of my favorite games on the Xbox 360. It's a licensed title featuring one of my favorite characters from Marvel Comics, Captain America. This is Captain America Super Soldier.
Back on the Xbox 360, Sega had the Marvel license to create games, and most of their games were bad. I won't pull any punches with you. They were not good. Thor is terrible. Thor is absolutely horrific. But one that is excellent, and one that somehow only scored a 60 from critics, is Captain America Super Soldier. Retelling the story of Captain America, the First Avenger, and featuring Chris Evans on vocals, you get a magnificent third-person action-adventure game with collectible elements that is just magnificent. It leans heavily into comic book lore. It doesn't just rely on what happens in the MCU, but it makes the game and it makes the world of Captain America, the First Avenger, more rich. And it does this with amazing gameplay. There's fantastic QuickTime events. There's great combat, huge levels for you to explore and discover all kinds of amazing things on, great enemy designs, and really, really fun gameplay that just doesn't add up to a 60 to me. I can't understand why this one is ranked so low, especially when anyone I know that has played it speaks highly of it. I love this game. I think it is absolutely wonderful, and the rare MCU movie tie-on that just crushes it and sticks the landing.
One I did not expect to get on the Nintendo Switch, a remake of one of my favorite games from the 6th generation. This is Pac-Man World Repack.
I really did love the first 2 Pac-Man World games on the GameCube, and getting Pac-Man World Repack on the Switch was a treat because it touches up and it looks great. It still plays fantastically well. It is a great 6th generation style collectathon 3D platformer that just works. Now, this might not be for modern audiences, and this could be nostalgia goggles telling me that I like this game a lot better than it actually is performing, but I don't see any flaws with it outside of like the fact that it isn't as polished as something like a Spyro game or something like Super Mario Sunshine. I still think it's fun, and I still think it's well designed. Reviewers didn't think so, though. They gave this one a 65 overall on Metacritic, and I am kind of shocked by that, because when I play it, I don't really see anything terribly wrong with it outside of maybe some flaws in level design and things like that. The gameplay is still solid and still really fun. I love the Pac-Man World games, and I'm happy to have this on the Switch. I think it's a wonderful addition to the library.
Talked about this one over on Marcello's channel, aka GameCube Galaxy, but I want to talk about here as well. This is one of my favorite multiplayer experiences on the Nintendo GameCube, which was not immune to getting average scores for great games. And this, like I said, one of my favorite multiplayer titles, one of my favorite licensed games on the system as well. This is Teen Titans.
Like I mentioned, I have talked about this game on my friend Marcello's channel, aka GameCube Galaxy. If you're not subscribed, you really should be, because he's brilliant, wonderful, and fantastic. And I have said how much that I love the Teen Titans game. Now, I learned about this one from the Grand Poobah of retro gaming here on YouTube, Metal Jesus. He talked about this, I believe, on a GameCube Hidden Gems video. And I was just shocked because I had no idea this game existed. And that was surprising to me because I am a massive fan of the Teen Titans animated series and Teen Titans Go. I'm shocked we never got a good Teen Titans Go video game, for the record. Warner Brothers, if you're listening, make it happen. I am just blown away by how much fun this game is. It is faithful in presentation style to the animated series. The voice actors are all back. The game plays brilliantly well. It is a magnificent multiplayer title. You can control Beast Boy, Raven, Robin, Cyborg, or Starfire. They all play just like their animated series counterparts, and nothing misses. Reviewers didn't like it, though. Gave it a 63, and I don't understand that one. For something that is like tailor-made for fantastic multiplayer action on the Nintendo GameCube, this one just missed reviewers for some reason, and I don't understand why, because when I play it, and anyone I know who has played it, they love it. It is fantastic.
Noticing that a lot of these are licensed games, and that's okay, because everyone knows I love a licensed title. Jumping all the way back to the NES now, and this one is really a shame, because this is a Capcom classic, and something that I think is absolutely phenomenal. This is G.I. Joe: The Atlantis Factor.
I don't understand why this one is ranked so low, because when I look at it, this is just a classic Capcom game to me. This is G.I. Joe: The Atlantis Factor on the NES, and while I did have to fudge the numbers a little bit by averaging scores from different older magazines, which no one had a standardized review score back then, it comes out to a 61 based on my math, and that is so ridiculously low, because this is just classic Capcom action. Now, this does play a lot like the Texan version that released... Texan? I think it was Texan. Whatever G.I. Joe: A Real American Hero was developed by, it's very similar to that, but it's still a classic Capcom title, and it's a ton of fun. That is just designed brilliantly well. You get to go through massive levels and fight huge bosses at the end of every level, using classic G.I. Joe characters like General Hawk and Snake Eyes and Duke. It's a wonderful game that sticks reliably to the license it's using, and it's just a lot of fun to play. It's hard as hell, don't get me wrong. There are parts of the game that are incredibly difficult and very frustrating, but I just think it's fun. It's NES hard, but it's rewarding when you beat a level.
Off now to the PlayStation 2, and while this one doesn't quite live up to the expectations we had set for things like Marvel Ultimate Alliance or X-Men Legends, I do think this is a quality game. This is Justice League Heroes.
I mentioned X-Men Legends and the Marvel Ultimate Alliance series in the intro for this game, and this is clearly where the inspiration is drawn for it. But Justice League Heroes, while it doesn't quite live up to those expectations, still delivers a really fun title. You get to play as the classic Justice League characters: Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Martian Manhunter, Zatanna, amongst many, many others. And it's just a fun title to get into. It's an action RPG where you're able to hot swap between different characters, level them up any way you see fit, equip them with different items, and at the end of the day, it plays very similarly to Marvel Ultimate Alliance and the X-Men Legends games. Again, it's a little bit clunkier than those. It's not quite as well finished as those, I think is probably the best way to put it. It's still a really fun game. It's just lacking in a few key areas as far as like what would feel like a completely finished title. But even with that, a 68 for this game overall from scores on Metacritic is really, really low to me. I think it's a fun game, and I think a lot of people, if they had given it a chance, probably would have enjoyed it quite a bit.
The Nintendo Wii had a lot of games released on it, a lot of them very bad, but some of them were actually really fun, and this is one of my favorites on it. I do think this is a quality title that does a faithful retelling of the story that the Wachowskis told with their film. This is Speed Racer, the video game.
The Wachowskis' brilliant Speed Racer film was the first movie on Blu-ray I ever watched, and that absolutely blew my mind with the possibility of what Blu-ray as a format could offer. So my expectations for this game were really, really high because I love that movie so much. And I was expecting a lot from this game on the Nintendo Wii, and what I got is something that I absolutely treasure, and I think is just such a brilliant, fun, and different kind of racing game that we had never really seen before. And I think it's magnificent. A 69 overall is what the reviewers have this as on Metacritic, and I can see, at least on this one, why they might have ranked it that way, because it does play a little bit differently than really any other racing game I've ever played, but it doesn't play poorly. It plays brilliantly well. It is fast. It feels like speed personified. The controls are great. It has all of the signature moves from the Wachowskis' film that were things that blew my mind watching that movie for the first time. I love this one. This is one I took a flyer on. I found this at an antique mall up in Grand Rapids for like $5, and I was like, yeah, what the hell, why not? Let's give it a shot. Zero disappointment in that purchase, I tell you what.
I can only think that this one got rated low because of the fact that people just didn't understand what the company was going for, because this is such a faithful rendition of a brilliant animated series. One of my all-time favorite cartoons and a fantastic game that more people need to play. This is Batman, the Brave and the Bold.
So like I said in the intro, I think one of the things that did in Batman the Brave and the Bold on the Wii is the fact that a lot of folks who reviewed it probably didn't watch the cartoon it was based on. And that's a shame because the cartoon is a campy madcap romp of fantastic superhero action that never once takes itself too seriously. And it is reflected in the game. Because the game is, at its core, silly in the grand scheme of things, right? Like, the vocal lines in the game, delivered by the brilliant Diedrich Bader and the rest of the vocal cast from the Batman Brave and the Bold series, are fantastically done and just dry and wry and really, really hilariously done. The gameplay is really fun. It's a solid beat-em-up with some fun superhero action and a fantastic look. Like, legitimately, one of the prettiest games on the Nintendo Wii. It takes hand-drawn animation and just makes it sing. It's a really fun game, and I think there's a lot more to be added here and a lot more value here than reviewers gave it credit for. Because for me, it comes in at a 70, and that's just far too low. I don't think it's a perfect game by any stretch of the imagination, but when I weigh this against other beat-em-ups that I've played, this is right up there with classic games that I think are really, really enjoyable.
All right, back to the Game Boy Advance now, and this is one that I'm actually surprised ranked as low as it did because I think it's significantly better than the original game, which actually is up in the 80s as far as a Metacritic score goes. This is Lilo & Stitch 2, Hamsterville Havoc.
There is such a huge disparity between the first game in this series, Lilo & Stitch on the Game Boy Advance, which scored an 80 on Metacritic, and the sequel, Lilo & Stitch 2, Hamsterville Havoc, which scores a 66. And that is absolutely asinine to me, because this is as close to a Metal Slug and Alien Hominid hybrid as you're likely to get. This game is brilliant. It is so much fun. It is so well designed. And it looks amazing. It feels like a Disney animated TV series come to life. And you get to play as the, home wrecking blue alien Stitch. It's magnificent. It's absolutely wonderful. Now, I might be a little bit predisposed because Lilo & Stitch is my favorite Disney film, but it's such a good game that I can overlook the license. You could have put the most nameless, faceless character in the world on this, and if I would have played it, I would have enjoyed it because it's that well done. The gameplay is solid, the challenge is there, despite the fact that this is ostensibly a kid's game designed for kids that were watching a show on the Disney Channel. It still works and it still offers a good challenge. It's really fun. I really do genuinely think that this is a GBA hidden gem.
There you have it, my friends. 10 more games I think critics got wrong. They said these games were just average, and I think they are far better than what the critics gave it credit for. Let me know in the comments down below what you think about these games. Let me know if you agree, disagree, or if there's any you think that I may have overlooked. Now, I did change the review scores a little bit on this one. I tried to keep it below a 70 based on your feedback from last video, as I mentioned at the top of the video, and I do appreciate that. So if there's anything you want to see tweaked for future iterations of this video, let me know in the comments down below. Till next time, folks, I've been Jay. Appreciate you spending a little bit of time with me. Remember to play more games, stay square, and take care. I'll talk to you soon.